The holidays, they approach, but instead of an axe to the head, might I consider Raycons instead? Sounding like their everyday earbuds, quality Bluetooth earbuds that are about half the price compared to other premium earbuds out there while sounding just as good, and they got a nice rubber oil look to them, and they come in a variety of colors too, or you can go white if you're boring. I'm boring. Their compact design feels great, all nice and snug, thanks to their optimized gel tips, ensuring the perfect fit no matter the size of your ears. The built-in mic also means you can use them for phone calls in the off chance you're not getting Mr. Scam Likely for the 54th time that day. Raycons last about 8 hours on a single charge, but with a rechargeable carrying case, you can get up to 32 hours on the go. Shopping, working out, getting stuck in traffic, it's how I've been using them for some time. And Raycon is offering all my viewers a great deal. Click the link in the description below or go to buyraycon.com/somecallmejohnny to unlock exclusive deals up to 20% off your Raycon order. There's also a 45-day free return policy so you can make sure you find the right pair for yourself without breaking the bank. And as always, thank you very much for helping support this channel. Now let's continue on with the show, shall we? I want to say the 2000s was probably the best string of years for Samus, since not only was Metroid out of its hiatus, but it was thriving on multiple consoles. Between 2002 and 2007, including spin-offs, the series would see 7 releases, which was unprecedented for the franchise. A few games even sharing similar consoles, a first for the series. The GameCube got 2 Prime titles, while the Game Boy Advance not only got Fusion, but also Metroid Zero Mission, a remake of the original game, once again led by the team over at Nintendo R&D 1. Yoshio Sakamoto not only returning as director, but he was also the writer for this one, the goal being to finally flesh out Samus's origin in the games proper without having to rely on obscure supplementary material. That said, there was obscure supplementary material for this anyway, and that was a Japanese exclusive 2-volume Metroid manga released throughout late 2003 and early 2004 in anticipation for the game. And I went and gave it a read since English translated scans are very easy to find with a Google search. I wanted to see if reading this would enhance my next Zero Mission experience, since I never fully read this until getting ready to make this video. And despite being more interesting, I find it's not much more fulfilling than the Nintendo Power comic for Super Metroid. Only this one was considered canon. Sort of. There are a few contradictions concerning event timelines and other things that wouldn't make sense if it truly was a tie-in to Zero Mission. It's better to think of it as an adaptation of Samus's mission on planet Zebes and her days as a warrior beforehand. If I were to compare, I did enjoy the manga a little more than the Nintendo Power comic, if anything because the writing wasn't so dated. But the writing I did read, the English translation anyway, was a little more vanilla and bland. Elements of the Nintendo Power comic are implemented here anyway, like Samus being raised by the Chozo since childhood after her home was destroyed by space pirates. Planet Zebes turns out was a second home to Samus, and the reason she was infused with Chozo DNA was so she could survive the harsh climate. You got the old bird returning, the elder Chozodian giving sage advice to those in need, but now there's also Grey Voice, a Chozo warrior that, in respects, is the closest thing Samus has to a father figure that gets some pretty badass moments before he's ultimately killed off by Ridley later in the comic. They even bring back Keaton, a character I liked from the comic. Oh fuck, I spoke too soon? Hardy's back. But Hardy here is nothing like the comic. Here he's just a Federation hardass that gives his subordinates shit for slacking off, which is almost painfully ironic if you know Hardy's previous incarnation. There are some other side characters here that add some flavor, and yet no one here really goes beyond the Saturday morning shonen anime archetype. Like Samus's Federation buddies, Kreitz and Mach, they do their part but don't get enough time to become fully realized characters. Mach kind of reminds me of Calabac, Darkseid's brother from the DC universe. You can tell me he was voiced by Michael Dorn, and I believe you in a heartbeat. Ridley's a real bastard in this though, not only commanding a legion of space pirates that have no problems killing children because they're too short to be slaves, alright, but it's also this manga that confirms that Ridley was the one who killed Samus's parents. Samus's mom, to be more precise. Samus's dad fucking blows himself up to stop pirates from stealing a resource thereafter, which they end up getting later anyway. But dude, Ridley is such a shit, taking every opportunity to gleefully be as sadistic as possible in every scene that he's in, taunting Samus as a child as things are going to shit, and then years later, mentally torturing her, saying that he might have eaten her mom to regenerate his health when he was in a bad spot. He steals the show. Like, God, you want to see Samus scorch this asshole, which you can do in the game proper. Maybe that's why they made him so unlikable. It's like, kill this motherfucker now for only $29.99. Samus gets all the love here, obviously, expanding upon her earliest years as a child taken in by the peaceful Chozo, her early days with the Federation and getting used to the power suit, shooting down butterflies with space guns, focusing on not only her growth as a warrior, but as a human dealing with a ton of emotional baggage. So yeah, there's a moment where Samus confronts Ridley, the first time she's seen him since her parents died, and she starts suffering from PTSD. All of those years she spent bottling up her repressed memories of that tragic event just suddenly spilling out uncontrollably. She shuts down, like dramatically shuts down, even yearning for death at one point. But then, oh man, she's comforted by the remaining Chozo telling her to let it all out, that they're proud of her and everything she's done, and that panel where she just screams her fucking ass off, letting it all go. Oh my god, this just makes me hate the other MC even more because they got it right the first time in the manga. Why didn't they just pay respect to that over... Ooh. The thing that sort of kills this as an official tie-in is that Zero Mission, the game itself, doesn't do anything to follow up on things that happen in this manga besides what was already accomplished in the original game. You have a new opening monologue where Samus reflects on her first mission here, proclaiming that it's time for her to retell the tale. And then after that, there's nothing until after the confrontation with Mother Brain, where in a neat twist, Samus escapes the exploding base as usual, only to get shot down by space pirates close by. With nothing but her Zero suit and a pathetic stun gun, Samus has to infiltrate the nearby space pirate battleship to find a means of escape. And after some spelunking, she stumbles across some ancient Chozo ruins, and for a brief, very brief moment, we see Samus reflect on her childhood. The first time in the game's proper, we see an inkling of Samus's past that isn't locked behind a completion picture in the Japanese version of Metroid Fusion. You had to work for those fucking breadcrumbs. But after this whole moment here, we don't get shit afterwards, and then the credits roll. Yoshio Sakamoto wanted Zero Mission to not only be an updated Metroid 1 as a game, but use it as an opportunity to retell Samus's origin. And it's like, okay, sure, but there's bits and pieces here, but it really isn't much new outside of what Metroid fans already knew. If you read the manga beforehand, it's lesser, and if this is your first Metroid game, you're likely just confused by the sporadic nature of the cutscenes that contain no dialogue. Or maybe you're intrigued by it all, perhaps the idea was to build some mystery and pay it off for the future game. We can go further into that with other M, as I feel it's more appropriate to delve into that aspect there rather than here. Metroid Zero Mission at the end of the day is mainly concerned with just being an updated Metroid 1 using elements and mechanics from Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion. The result is one of my favorite games in the franchise. Holy shit, Zero Mission is so fucking good. Players now have a definitive way to experience Samus's first mission without having any of the antiquated design that came with the original 8-bit title. Though if you have the time, I'd still recommend you try out Metroid Mother, a mod of the NES game that has some decent quality of life updates, like a mini-map for one thing, and beam upgrades that stack, hallelujah. I played this a couple of months ago thinking I was going to cover it during the first video, but I figured it was more appropriate for this one since we're on the topic of Metroid 1 redos. The only thing I don't like about this mod are the updated graphics. I mean, they look great, they do, but they lag the game to shit and cause so much sprite flickering. It's not a pretty sight, especially for the Ridley battle. Overall, a great way to play the NES game if you want that old school aesthetic with more modern conventions. Zero Mission's still better though. Good lord, multi-directional aiming, the map system from Super Metroid, the updated music complete with new tunes, the title theme alone makes me well up. It's so well composed. I think the game graphically is a slight step back from Fusion, and that mainly falls on Samus's design. I love the power suit, but her sprites move at like double speed and look about as jerky as the NES game. And that was likely intentional now that I'm saying it out loud. And if you could believe it, the original plan was just to make her sprite an updated version of the NES one. Check out the early prototype footage. Look at that head, it's so goddamn big! Returning upgrades from previous games are put to great use, making them incredibly fulfilling to use. The screw attack has never shined like this before. It is an amazing asset for this remake, decimating all manner of creatures big and small. You got beams that stack, ledge grabbing from Fusion. She needs a power up to do that here, strangely though. Didn't need that for Fusion, unless the power grip is one of those abilities she didn't lose. But I couldn't ledge grab in Super, but I could ledge grab in Samus Returns. Continuity sucks! Bomb jumping has never been easier, the timer has shrunken considerably to make it possible, and here you can even bomb jump diagonally. With good timing you can get things like the Varia suit early without having to wait for the ice beam or high jump. A lot of things can be accomplished with bomb jumps here, reaching higher areas that you couldn't access with a normal jump or even a wall jump, which itself is back to how it worked in Super, letting you scale single walls if you want, though I find it harder to do here compared to Super because god, Samus is so fast in this game, running and jumping on a level unlike anything previously. The game in general is just faster. Bombs, Samus herself, enemies dying, even the elevators move at twice the speed. This is one of the main reasons why I know people prefer Zero Mission over the other games, because this is a Samus where it honest to god feels like you're in complete control of your actions and platforming skills. With the condensed design of Fusion making a return, this Samus zips and zooms without ever breaking the pace, doubly so now that she has a few upgrades from Metroid 2 like the Spring Ball and the Speed Booster from Super Metroid. You can even Shine Spark while in Morph Ball now. It's seldom used unless you're going for all the items, but it's so cool to see in action and perform anyway. My only gripe is that super missiles are considered a separate item again, so you have to use the select button to switch between grades, and I find that a little more invasive than the stackable missiles from Fusion and not nearly as snappy. At least those are the only two things I'm switching between because the grapple beam and X-ray scoop are once again absent. However, not all upgrades are immediately available because there's a couple of ancient Chozo statues that hold power-ups your current suit can't— okay, one moment here. I gave it a pass during Fusion because I figured it was just a one-off thing, but Zero Mission did it again. What's with the curved arm cannon? How the fuck does that work? It doesn't. If Samus's cannon was curved, that motherfucker's hitting nothing but solid ground. I'm sorry, I just don't understand why the cannon in the status screen is bent. It's like they overlaid a cannon graphic over the natural bender for arm. It's, anyway, sorry for getting distracted. Yeah, there's a few upgrades Samus can't immediately use because her suit is, to quote the game, incompatible. Not updating the firmware so you can make your suit an emulator, Samus? I mean, I also don't like the expansion pass's new prices. Perhaps the true space pirate was inside us all along. But no, this doesn't make any sense, even if it does have a tremendous payoff in the last third of the game. Apparently, it's a callback to the 3 sacred treasures of Kid Icarus because Metroid 1 and Kid Icarus shared developers, and okay, sure, but why? Nevertheless, Samus is a wonder to control and exploring the planet feels great. They managed to reach a good compromise between letting players explore for themselves and the developers guiding them to the next area. A few Chozo statues can help point you in a general direction you should be aiming for without straight up telling you what's up ahead, keeping the mystery intact. But if you want, you can also just ignore most of them with enough finesse. Nah, I'm good. I appreciate the thought though. Samus has more than enough means to travel through planet Zebes, unless you're playing on a higher difficulty, something Zero Mission allows you to do. Nothing much will challenge Samus here, suit incompatibility be damned. A lot of enemies return from the NES game with a shiny coat of paint, but they're still about as rigid as the 8-bit game, and since Samus is so nimble and battle-ready, she'll have no problem taking care of everything with a few beam shots and missiles, not even the new mini-bosses. A welcome addition to be sure, these are cool creatures, but they all go down fast with missiles, and you get so many early on too. Zero Mission also isn't very long, it's one of the shortest games in the 2D lineup since most of it uses the NES game as a foundation. And besides one major addition later, that being Chozodia, the ancient Chozo temple that isn't very fun to travel through being honest, Zero Mission will probably only take the newcomer about 3 to 4 hours. And don't get me wrong though, Zero Mission pays a lot of respect to the original's map design. It still manages to inject just enough life to make these areas look and feel completely new and give it a greater sense of continuity between this and Super Metroid. Crateria was added above the surface of Brinstar, though it's not as large and missing a few rooms. The space pirate battleship is like if the wrecked ship from Super Metroid wasn't, wrecked. Actual space pirates to boot. And man, I always thought these guys were more like an army of mantis men, but I see these guys on their big meaty claws and okay, they're crab people. Lobsters maybe? This game does a good job of making them feel like a threat though, because they're all over the battleship during the game's stealth sequence where you lose your suit, and you can't fight them head on, they'll massacre your ass, and themselves, fucking dumbasses. It's good stuff, but then after you pass the test from the Chozo Ghost, you get your fully powered suit complete with those upgrades you couldn't use beforehand, being the plasma beam, the space jump, and the gravity suit, and now you are the table, decimating everything in your path in a glorious use of gameplay and story integration, the best feel-good moment of Zero Mission. Alright, this is the game to introduce the Zero Suit as a concept, isn't it? Yeah, I don't mind it, but this game's got some pretty gratuitous ass shots peppered throughout, and I'm not particularly crazy about Samus's Barbie doll look. The game has never veered away from using sex appeal as an incentive. I mean, to some, that's the entire point of completing the game faster. They want Samus in a bikini or a skimpy outfit. I guess now that everyone knows that Samus is a woman and the mystique is gone, they said, fuck it, just give them more ass. So lap it up, you fucking pervs. There's a spiderweb on this thing. What the fuck? The vest and shorts combination is a great look though, but here you gotta 100% the game to see it, and this game fucking sucks to 100%. I don't like doing it. I can get like 75% of all the items on a relatively normal run just from muscle memory, but that extra effort requires going so out of the way to every part of the planet with your fully upgraded suit to get like 1 or 2 missile expansions you couldn't get previously, or power bombs that are just here to fulfill a contractual obligation. They're the polar opposite of their fusion presence. That game gave you 74 of those fuckers, and this game only gives you around 18. And because you get them so late into the game, I mean, you are near the final boss's doorstep when you first nab them. You can skip them completely if you want. They're not so much a weapon, but a tool to explore the remaining bits of the planet if you really want to go back from this point and explore Zebes. It's so out of the way though, and some expansions are locked behind some obnoxiously precise bomb and shine spark puzzles. Some you can do as soon as you reach them, but you really want to wait until you get your suit upgrade before tackling these, because the precision needed for some of them with your basic stuff is absurd. This one right here can just blow me. It's a fucking 3-frame window to make this speed boost jump. This game makes you work for this shit, but with like half of the satisfaction. I don't bother most of the time, especially in hard mode, because ammo and energy not only get cut in half and you take more damage, but it also just makes exploration more awkward towards endgame when you need a good dose of power bombs and you only get like 2 or 3. What's funny is that the health of the final boss, this out of nowhere Robo Ridley, what the fuck is this? This dude goes down in seconds like a chump if you don't bother getting every item. 100% of the game though, especially in hard mode, this motherfucker can suddenly take a lot of pain and fucking 2-shot you. Ow. I don't quite understand the correlation between your items and this thing's health. Maybe it has more time to charge its systems while you're fucking up this shine spark jump for the 86th time. I like the idea at least. If you went out of your way to deck Samus out, the final boss should be able to deck you back. And though I hate going for every item in Zero Mission, I absolutely get more than enough jollies just playing the game from front to back and in different ways as well. The devs put these intentional shortcuts throughout the game, letting you either skip items you don't really need or skip some mini bosses completely, allowing you to do things like tackling Ridley first in homage to the original game. I love doing this route because by the time I get to Kraid, I already have super missiles and it's like, hi Kraid, bye Kraid. That's gratifying. It's a neat challenge seeing how far you can get into the game collecting as little as possible. The devs even put a new ending screen behind beating the game with 15% total items or less, and then doing it again in less than 2 hours, so this is completely by design, and I think a new incentive for challenging players without being just a self-imposed handicap. Zero Mission's great, it really is. It's short as hell, but it's fun throughout. I did about 3 playthroughs for this video and I didn't get tired of it except for the 100% hard mode run. That wasn't as fun, but Zero Mission, still fun. One of the best in the franchise and an excellent starting point for newcomers, one I repeatedly tell people to start with if they're considering the Metroid franchise at all, given the easier design and tight controls, and if you want a little more, there's always the different difficulties and developer shortcuts. I would love if Nintendo re-released this in Fusion for the Switch eShop. These are perfect games for your handheld Switch, and I find it odd that besides owning a physical cartridge, the only other official way of getting these is through the Wii U eShop. Like, it's not even available on the 3DS unless you were an ambassador, and even then that only applies to Fusion. Metroid GBA collection. Make it happen, Nintendo, and don't fucking make it a limited release sort of bullshit either. So next up is a game that, honestly, I've been kind of looking forward to revisiting the most among everything else I've done for this marathon, besides Metroid Dread, of course, but buckle up, boys and girls, because we're going to Metroid Other M next time. But as always, thank you all for watching. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask if you decide to go outside, get vaccinated if possible, have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.